Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast. Today is a special day for us at PharmaSource as we can finally reveal to you something we've been working on in the background for quite some time. Over the last 3 years and some 240 podcasts, we've been flat out busy growing PharmaSource and our events CDMO Live and external manufacturing leaders as an independent business focused on biopharma outsourcing. For Chris and I, who founded the company, and our team, it's been an amazing and incredibly rewarding journey working within this community that delivers so much for patients. So today we're really happy to announce the next phase of our journey, which is, drumroll please, that CDMO Live has won Best Event Launch at the AEO Excellence Awards, the world's #1 event industry awards. Hang on, there's something else too. More drums. That we are joining Life Science Connect, which you may well know as the media business behind Life Science Leader, Pharmaceutical Online, Clinical Leader, Outsourced Pharma, as well as the CDMO and CRO Leadership Awards. We're going to be forming a new live events division within Life Science Connect, which means the brands that we're building and our team, who we're incredibly proud of, will now benefit from the scale and investment of this $30 million private equity-backed media business based out of Pennsylvania. We wanted to explain to you, the PharmaSource listener, the full story behind this. So thought there's no better way than to get CEO Jon Howland onto the podcast and grill him. As a word of warning, we do go into the weeds of the media business a bit. So if that's not your usual prescription, apologies in advance. But hopefully there'll be some takeaways in here about the changing landscape, and it should go some way to explain what we're doing and why we feel this is the best possible home for the continued growth of our business. And not to mention the next 240 episodes. Thank you as ever for listening, and we're so grateful to all our friends and partners in this amazing community. Jon, welcome to the PharmaSource podcast today. I'm excited to be having this conversation with you. It's great that we can finally talk about this.
Yeah, been a long time coming.
It has, possibly too long, and I'm sure that's just as much our fault as anything. But yeah, it's really nice to be able to talk about this and to share the news with PharmaSource listeners. So before we jump into what's going to be happening in the future with PharmaSource and CDMO Live and all of that, let's start off talking about Life Science Connect, because it'd be great to understand a bit more about that business for those who aren't familiar with it, perhaps. So maybe you could just talk us through what the business is, where it came from. I mean, you've been with what is now Life Science Connect for the last 30 plus years or so. So it'd be great to get your perspective on where it came from, what it is today, please.
Yeah, sure. It's been a journey. Back when we started, we were print only. There was no internet. In fact, we didn't even focus in life sciences back then. We were in the high tech world of business machines, faxes and copiers and stuff like that. And over time, we got into IT, but we were again a print only publisher. Now, our focus of the print magazines was to be a go-to source of actionable information. We weren't news based. We wanted to focus on the problems that our readers were trying to solve and find different ways to help them succeed. Now that hasn't changed. That's been kind of our mantra throughout this period. We have a philosophy that we follow that we call follow your reader, which means you're trying to serve a readership. So everything you should do should come from what they need. And the only way that you can know that is to have the discussion with the reader. And so that's what we've done forever. Over time, we the internet happened, and we started getting into those services more on the IT side. Well, I would call it web light. And then a little after 2000, we purchased the assets of a company called Vertical Net, and they had media, digital properties in, I think, 69 or 70 different industries. So now we go from this IT print publisher to having real web communities in an abundance of different markets. And so we took that and we did the absolute wrong thing. We tried to win in all these different markets.
All B2B niches?
All B2B. Yep,
Yep.
it was all B2B. It would have been, I mean, there was life sciences was in there. The core, which we are still in, was environment, more on the water side. There was insurance, automotive, school buyers, stuff like all kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
And so, we thought, hey, we're going to grow all these things and become this massive publishing company. We were privately owned, and so we could only spend what we sold. Um, and we found that we were just way too thin, way too thin. So along the way, we decided to focus. Fast forward to today, we've exited most of the markets we were in. We're still in water because we believe there could be a tie-in there to life sciences. Obviously the need for
Mhm.
clean water coming in and clean water going out. The the but the focus was on life sciences, and we chose life sciences mostly because of the impact that the industry has, on patients and
Mhm.
humanity. Um, but then there's a lot of tough problems to solve in our industry,
Mm.
and so our readers are constant, and it's constantly changing. They need a source of good, up to date, actionable content and information that can help them do what they're trying to do.
Mm.
That's how we got to where we are now.
Was that a difficult decision to make to say we're going to exit all of these various markets and just focus purely on life sciences?
It was easier to make the decision, a lot harder to execute
Mm.
the decision. Again, being a smaller family-owned business, you had a decent amount of revenue tied up in these other markets. You couldn't just cut that off. So we had to methodically exit um, those markets where it uh, most took care of our clients in those markets, and then just move those resources over into life sciences.
Mhm.
But looking back, yeah, I would not have. It was the right decision.
Yep. Looking at the portfolio now, John, the sort of on the digital media side of things, maybe you could just sort of explain some of the breadth that Life Science Connect has, because I think, certainly titles like outsourced pharma are very close to, to what we do, some real synergies with PharmaSource and CDMO Live. Obviously, you've got the CDMO Leadership Awards as well, but I think that's just, touching the surface.
We have a number of different communities under Life Science Connect. It all started off our flagship community, which still exists today and is very strong today, is Pharmaceutical Online.
Hmm.
That's the asset that we purchased from one of the assets we purchased from VerticalNet. And that was an all-encompassing pharmaceutical industry community. Over time, talking to the readers, we found that, let's say, for example, you were in clinical operations, uh, and you could get information you needed on Pharmaceutical Online, but you had to go through information on a lot of other areas, API and excipients, or different machinery, or whatever the case may be. So we decided we want to segment the market into more homogeneous groups where you've got you know people who are trying to solve the same problem. So in clinical operations, obviously, they're trying to execute trials effectively, and so we wanted to be able to give them a higher density of information to help them solve those problems and make it easier access for them to get that. So
Hmm.
we split out clinical leader from that um, exercise. Clinical leader since then has also spun out clinical tech leader and clinical supply leader.
Mhm.
Again, just so we can, get more specific information to a more specific reader set. Outsourced pharma was the same process. We were, I think, one of our earliest clients on Pharmaceutical Online was Patheon. When they
Hmm.
were, new and smaller. The So Patheon had joined a number of other CDMOs, started getting onto the pharmaceutical online platform. And we noticed that the activity that they were getting on their content was really strong and a lot higher than some of our other non-CDMO clients. And so we started evaluating that activity, started talking to the readers, learning that outsourcing was becoming more and more of an attractive option for them for all the reasons that you and your readers know. And so we decided, okay, the readers need more of this. So we segmented out outsourcing into outsourced pharma. Also have done that with Bioprocess Online, cellandgene.com, Advancing RNA, drug delivery leader, drug discovery leader. So what we're trying to do is, the entire development cycle, from discovery through commercial manufacturing, segment out the different groups at the different stages who have to solve very specific problems, and create a community of those people where they can get the information they need, interact with the peers they need to interact with, to solve the problems they're trying to solve.
Very interesting model, isn't it? I guess from a strategic point of view, what are some of the challenges, I suppose, with that model of how you balance scale versus having these very focused communities? I mean, how do you approach that in terms of how the teams are set up, or how the back-end operations, very select vertical communities can plug into? What's the right way to make that balance work?
Yeah, there's some roles that span across the communities, and then there will be some roles that would be specific to the community. So editorially, we have editors who focus in the communities that they have responsibility for, so they can best learn the reader and create the type of content that is going to benefit those readers. Where surprisingly, on the sales side, the sales team can sell across communities. And so what we found in this model was, if you are we'll go back to Patheon, for example. If you're a CDMO and you have a variety of different services and you're seeking a variety of different types of clients, we might find that, hey, your biologic target is on Bioprocess Online. Your small molecule target's on Pharmaceutical Online. Your cell therapy target is on Cell and Gene. And so the Thermo, or Thermo now, but Patheon would then be able to buy access to multiple communities, and that gave them the ability to get the very specific content to the different targets in each community. So, biologic content going to biologic companies, cell therapy content going to cell therapy companies, and so on and so forth. So, we found that it gave the readers a density of information they needed, and we found that it gave the clients the ability to speak specifically to the different types of readers that they were targeting.
Yep. What have you learned about how the customer journey has changed as well? Because if you think about how the business has evolved from being print and into a single website to multiple, how does the customer themselves navigate through all that? And what does that mean in terms of the media business that you have now in 2026, and types of skills and technologies that you have to deliver that right place, right time content?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The way we look at it is the different stages in the buyer's journey have not changed, and I don't think they're ever going to change. The buyers are always going to set their objectives and strategies based on whatever issues they're facing. They're going to seek the information to figure out the best way to execute on those strategies. They're going to look for partners and suppliers to help them, solve the problems and hit the objectives they're trying to hit. What has changed, obviously, over time, from the time we were print and then early internet, and now with AI entering the equation, what has changed is that the way they seek, how they seek access to the information. So, obviously, back when I started, and you're a reader, okay, you read a magazine, then you waited a month till another one showed up to see if the information was in there. With the internet, all that stuff was, at your fingertips. And now with AI, just the the customization and depth of the information you get is, exponentially better than what it was 30 years ago. So how they get information has changed. The information they need, and the things they're trying to do, that hasn't changed. So we look at it as, not that we were, print or web or AI enabled. We look at it as we're a source of the information they need, and as their habits and behaviors change, to get that information, we have to change with them.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you follow your reader philosophy, that's exactly what you do. You evolve as the reader behaviors evolve. A good example of that, and sure, you've probably seen this in your own activity, is it's at one point a lot of people transition from reading articles to watching video.
Sure.
And so we were able to see a lot of these behavior changes through our ability to capture behavioral data. So the tech stack that we have put together, and what we're building out, gives us a lot of insight into what readers are doing, how they do it, and it allows us to change what we do to meet them, where they're at.
You talked about AI there as well. Be interesting to get your read on what that means for publishers like yourself. Obviously, there's opportunities with it, but also the idea that you've got all of these LLMs out there scraping all of publishers' content, not returning many clicks. It also presents some real risks and issues as well. How are you thinking about the opportunities, but also the challenges of AI?
Yeah. So obviously, the readers, how they are accessing information has changed dramatically just in the last year or so. I think it's you've probably seen the stats. It's up to 75 or 80% of Google searches result in 0 clicks. So a lot of publishers, and we did a lot of work on optimizing for SEO, but a lot of those efforts, those don't matter anymore. Again, we look at it as the reader is changing their behavior. So how do we help get them what they need as they need it? So there is a lot of debate around, what information, what content do you make available to AI engines, but then also what do you keep inside of your walls? AI is only as good as the information it can access. And if you're creating the right type of content, that's gonna be key. That's where the value is in the content. And quite frankly, that's one of the benefits of live events, which I'm sure we're going to get into. That is, if you think about the discussions that happen at a live event, that is just another version of content, and it's a version of content that AI can't scrape anywhere. So it's unique to that delivery mechanism, which is the live event, and the readers value that. They can't get that anywhere else. But anyway, we on the AI side, what we're going to be doing, and we have been doing, is using AI as a tool to help our readers get more of what they want when they want it. So when we look, to your previous question, when we look at information across the journey, we're capturing data points across a buyer's journey, not just from that individual, but from their organization. And we can see patterns in the kind of content they're looking at, the format of the content they're looking at. Are they focused more in problem-solving content, like, how do I increase my titer yield? Or are they now starting to research different suppliers? And we can see all that. And so that gives us the ability, using AI, to quickly identify where they're at in the journey and what information they need based on, different things that they're doing and deliver them more
Yeah.
of that information.
What's the next best action?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, I think, the disadvantage that a lot of marketers have in digital marketing is, they just throw all the content out to, maybe even a broader audience than might be in one of our communities, and they hope that something sticks
Hmm.
there. It's more of like in a fishing analogy, it's more of a chumming exercise. You're just throwing stuff
Mhm.
out and see what comes to eat it. Where, what we're doing is we're giving them the ability to go find exactly what they're targeting and go
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's from a reader perspective with the information they need, but also a client perspective. And they only want to spend their time with prospects that actually are fit for them and need what they have.
Hmm.
And in this industry, in CDMO, this, the need is not a scheduled thing in the calendar. It pops up due to a variety of different trigger points, like, hey, we've got certain, phase one data, and we got to start looking at phase two and phase three options for suppliers, or we just got
Hmm.
funding, or we're getting funding. So now we got to, kick in this plan. It doesn't get scheduled, the same time every year. It just happens. And so the challenge the clients face is knowing when someone is in need of their services. And with our tech tools, and now with AI, we can very much pinpoint the when, and get the client information in front of the buyer, which also helps the buyer get the information they need to make the right supplier
Hmm.
choice.
Thank you for explaining that so clearly. I mean, when we were looking at the various different media companies operating in the space, I think it is really interesting what Life Science Connect is doing. The investment that's coming in from Latticeworks and Edge Hill, the all-star board that you've got set up of luminaries from across media and events. And yeah, that sort of that the way that you're set up as a company that has been remarked on quite a bit by media industry commentators such as Colin Morrison from Flashes and Flames, who was saying that the approach that you're taking at LSC is unlike any other private equity experience that has been seen before. Weekly strategy calls, no cost cutting, bringing in recruits to make things work. Sitting where you do, Jon, how do you think about the role of the board and setting up this future looking media tech business?
Yeah, there's a lot in there to unpack. I tell you what, the Latticework and Edge Hill teams, um, when we met them, when we were going through our process and we met them, we quickly realized that, our DNA matches their DNA.
Mhm.
They are a growth oriented private equity firm, and the way they look at it is the same way we look at it, is you don't grow by cutting stuff. Um, Now, obviously they and we want to spend our resources wisely, um, but you have to grow. You have to add fuel, and that's been the approach, whether it's financial resource or people.
Mm.
So you mentioned the board. Our independent board members are, kind of a who's who
Yep.
in the different parts of our industry. Um, and we're very fortunate to get them, and that they saw something in us, um, that made it so they're willing to spend their time. And I tell you what, it's not just, this group of people showing up quarterly at a board meeting and, telling us, grow
Mm.
more. These are hands-on folks. They all have areas of expertise, and they're like jumping in the business and helping us achieve some of the things we're trying to achieve. So it's yeah, it's a all star
Yeah.
cast.
You got people in there like Doug Emsley, for example, who, famously, I think it is the event industry's biggest ever transaction when he sold Tarsus to Informa, who obviously do big events in our industry, such as CPHI and Pharma Pack and shows like
Hmm.
that, which is actually where Chris and I are from as well ourselves. Yeah, as you say, some serious big hitters who were there steering the media and event strategy.
Yeah, Doug's like an event industry OG.
Yeah.
He might be the most network guy in the industry, and his insight has been invaluable. But he's boots on the ground with us, and I think you know that.
Mm.
I think you may have spoken to Doug before you spoke to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's out there helping us make the connections to the type of people we're looking for. Others on the board, Sean Griffey, obviously B2B media. He had a successful run at Fierce and then started Industry Dive and a very successful exit with Industry
Mm.
Dive, which had some properties that overlapped with us. And I tell you what, just brilliant in building audiences and providing value to those audiences. So his insights have been great.
Mm.
Don Hawk, co-founder of Tech Target. They focused in the IT space, and we knew Tech Target well because Don and his team did a great job of kicking our butt when we were in the IT market. Um, but the real interesting thing with them, and a lot of what we've done on the tech side is following their lead. They were one of the first and maybe most successful at using tech to identify intent signals and other behavioral trends to benefit the readers and the clients. So that's exactly what we're trying to
Mm.
do. So, and then just being a founder of starting something from scratch and, selling to, again, Informa, who seems to buy everybody in our space, but selling to Informa, um, huge deal on that one.
I think all three that you mentioned all sold to Informa, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. So then that brings us to our last independent board member who's uh, didn't sell a business to Informa, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had them as a client. George Galati, he's just a pioneer in digital
Mm.
marketing. He's at Havas, I believe he launched the first digital only marketing organization. Went on, I think they ended up selling to Merkel, went on to Merkel as chief marketing officer. If there's a Mount Rushmore of B2B
Yeah.
marketing, George would be on that. And I tell you what, highest energy guy I've
Mm.
ever met in my life. So he's very hands-on, has helped us with a lot of obviously you go into this and there's a bit of rebranding and marketing we have to do, and he's been leading that charge
Mm.
on our end. So this isn't just a sit in a boardroom, tell us what to do group. They're a great hands-on partner.
And I think it clearly, sets the ambitious tone and growth. Let's talk about live events then. Why the focus on live events?
Yeah, I mean, really, that comes back to again, follow your
Mm.
reader. So apologize for harping on that, but it's kind of our North Star. Um, and we're what we're doubling down on, or quite frankly, in our AI-enabled world, it's more of a 10x approach, is giving our readers access to all the information they need as they need it in their buyer's journey.
Mm.
We did research not long ago on a large number of our readers, and the one of the top sources of information they seek out is direct interactions with colleagues and peers.
Mm.
Um, so live we before COVID, we were in live events, actually focused on the CDMO space, and we did an okay job. We were trying to figure it out along the way, and so we knew the value of those face-to-face interactions. But the buyers, especially in this industry, they need the insights of their peers and colleagues to solve the problems that they're trying to solve, and quite frankly, especially when dealing with suppliers, just to build that trust.
Mhm.
There's nothing like looking at someone in the eye, it's face to face, to establish that trust. So it's always been part of our roadmap, got sidelined by COVID. And then when we came out, we were actually, Luke, our plan was, okay, we're going to relaunch our CDMO
Mm.
events. And then we saw what you guys did and the level and quality that you produced. And it's like, wow, I don't think we want to go up against those guys. Um, so let's call Chris and Luke and see if we can partner up.
And here we are. I mean,
Here we are.
let's talk about that then. So obviously, we're really excited to be joining Life Science Connect, working with your team and Sandy Voss, who's also another mentioned Informer a few times, but another ex-Informer colleague who will be leading this team alongside Chris and I as part of the new events division. What was it about CDMO Live, external manufacturing leaders, PharmaSource? Why do you see that as being a fit for what you're already doing and also the future for the events business?
Yeah. So with PharmaSource, CDMO Live, EXM readers, the products there are super high quality, really, really, really strong. But that wasn't the appeal.
Mm-hmm.
It was, we have our new chief growth officer, Kyle Turner. One of his favorite little sayings is "best team wins." And if you look at we just talked about our board.
Mm.
We were trying to put the best team together, and our key hires, trying to find the best people to lead us where we want to go, because we believe it's really, you're putting the bet on people. Everything else is just what people create. And so, with PharmaSource and CMO Live, this was far more about you and Chris and your team than it was about the products that you created. It's a bet on you guys, and not just what you have, but what you're going to create in the future. So that was the real appeal.
Appreciate that.
And Luke did not pay me to say
No.
that.
How do you see the two worlds of digital content and communities and events playing together? Obviously, they're different channels. How does one support the other?
Yeah. Again, I think they're serving different parts of a buyer's journey, and what we're endeavoring to do is help that buyer throughout their entire journey. But if you think about, one of the movements in events these days is event companies wanting a content presence
Mm-hmm.
or community to kind of amplify the messaging throughout the year. So it's not just a 1 week a year, we do this thing. Um, so the combination that we have here, Luke, is taking those two pieces, and they're already existing and successful. So, but if you add the buyer journey part in there, think about, with the technology that we have, you have a innovator company, a biopharma company, who is, trying to figure out some challenge, and they're getting to the point where you could tell from the intent signals, or sometimes they'll just raise their hand and tell us that they're getting to that part in the buyer's journey where I've got to start considering CDMOs who could help me with my project. Well, we already know a lot about that reader. We also know a lot about the CDMOs. We can put them together at CDMO Live. And so when a CDMO is setting meetings and having meetings with innovators and vice versa, they're getting together. They already know about each other because of the data that we have on what each does and what they care about, and where they're at. So that meeting, instead of a kind of a discovery meeting on, hey, what do you guys do, and can you even help us? We can, before that meeting, both sides get information on the other, so they can have a productive meeting at CDMO Live. So, that's a big benefit right there. But then, even after an event, okay, well that innovator is going to be um, meeting with a bunch of different CDMOs. Okay, well, let's help the CDMOs, make sure they get the right information in front of not just the person they met, but other people in the buying team.
Mm.
And we have access to that data.
Yep. Yep.
There's the other benefits that are pretty straightforward, which is the ability to leverage the media readership to drive more attendance at CDMO
Sure.
Live. And that obviously will benefit the clients, but it'll also put more of these innovators together with their peers to discuss the things that they need to talk about. But really, it's, can we fit this into the buyer's journey and make it really productive and beneficial to both sides, as opposed to, you've gone to a lot of trade shows where people hope someone shows up at their booth
Mm.
and it's a good fit. Yeah, much more deliberate and targeted.
Sure. I think it's fair to say we're just at the first sort of baby steps on this journey, but we're really excited to see what that looks like, that combination of outsourced pharma and the CDMO Leadership Awards and PharmaSource and CDMO Live, and like tracking the journeys across all of those, what that could become. I mean, Jon, you've described in the past, I think, Life Science Connect's ambition as becoming the most comprehensive platform for life sciences. Is that what you mean when you're talking about that?
Yeah, that's part of it. It's the hub of the platform is the technology,
Hmm.
and the AI enablement of the technology, it to again make sure that the readers get the information and the connections to the people that they need to be connected to solve their problems more quickly. Because in this, it amazes me in this day and age that in B2B, especially in our drug industry, how long it takes to get the information you need to try to make decisions on the next step in your development path. There's a lot of error in that
Hmm.
system. We need to simplify that, and the technology is the key to that. But then beyond that, it's where the connections are going to happen. The platform has to enable them to engage in content on the community site or live events, peer groups, their phone, their preferred AI tools, digital events, things like that. So what we're building is, we want specific professionals to go to, have their specific community be their go-to source for what they need, um, to guide them through this
Yeah.
buyer's journey.
Yeah. As a final question, when we sit down in 4 years' time and look at what's happened over that period, where would you like us to have got to? What does good look like over the next 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, obviously, if you ask lattice work, a lot of that's going to be based on a certain level of revenue and EBITDA. Um, but really, what we want is, we want this platform created to serve drug industry and life science industry professionals, from discovery all the way through commercialization, and that's going to include live events in those areas. But it'll include some products that we haven't even thought of
Hmm.
yet. As we learn more and more from the readers, what that will result in, ideally, as Latticeworks heads towards the end of their hold period, is we have this functioning, highly engaged platform that is geared to just continue to grow and serve the readers in life sciences.
Hmm.
And if you do it right, Luke, then you can actually transfer that to potentially to other industries. Yeah, other industries that have similar characteristics. That could be food, that could be energy, things like that.
Hmm.
So, you have a model, you have a platform that's transferable. And then it comes down to the most important part, the people.
Mhm.
Just get the right people, the best people.
Great. Jon, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for explaining all of this so clearly. It's been really interesting. I guess, just to close, I mean, from our side, we couldn't be happier with our new home within Life Science Connect. It's been great working with you and your team, and it really feels like we're now going to have access to the resources and the support to be able to do more of what we love. So more podcasts and more events and more with the outsourcing community. So looking forward to it. This is the start of a new chapter and we're excited for it.
Yeah, we're super excited as well, and eager to see where we can take this, and excited to see what you and Chris and the team can build.
Jon, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Luke.